You're listening to the Codependent Millennial Podcast, Episode 9, Emotional Adulthood. This episode begins our series on the 7 essential steps to moving beyond codependency. To sign up to receive this guide along with the worksheets and written guidance, visit www.codependentmillennial.com/essential. Click the button that says Get the Guide and sign up there. Today we're talking all about emotional adulthood, aka the key to living your life the way you want to, not the way you think most people will approve of. Before I tell you what emotional adulthood is, let's discuss what it is not. Welcome to emotional childhood. Emotional childhood is essentially when we refuse to take responsibility for the results in our lives, be it our emotions, our career, our financial situation, our weight. Emotional childhood is abdicating responsibility for our lives onto other people or onto circumstances that we can't control. And why is this a problem? As you can imagine, when you're in emotional childhood, you're giving all of your personal power away to things and people you have no control over. You're determining what you are and aren't capable of thinking, feeling, doing based on how other people act or based on circumstances in the world that you have no control over. That's going to leave you feeling completely out of control of your life. That's going to quite literally take all of your personal power away. Choosing to be in emotional childhood leaves you completely unnecessarily disempowered and in a place where you're constantly trying to control everything and everyone around you in a really futile attempt to regulate your own experience in life. It's not necessary. It keeps you stuck. This never works, and it always ends in anger, resentment, helplessness, and a life not fully lived at all. It's really a one-way ticket to a half-lived life. And to blame and resentment, anger, all the things I mentioned. You don't have to live like this anymore. And I'm going to show you how to move past this. So keep listening. I was in emotional childhood for so many years in my life, so many years. And when I was introduced to really the concept that I could take more control over my life than I ever imagined having, it changed absolutely everything for me and brought me back from the brink of suicide. Not even kidding. So I wanted to share because this is really important stuff. So let's talk now about emotional adulthood now that we've covered emotional childhood. Emotional adulthood is living in the understanding that you are responsible for your emotions. Why? Because you're responsible for what creates your emotions, which are your thoughts. When we develop true emotional adulthood and emotional self-reliance, we can free ourselves from trying to live in the pursuit of outside conditions to provide ourselves with good feelings. We can stop living our lives in a way that we hope will manipulate outside conditions in such a way that we can allow ourselves to feel okay. Does that make sense? When we're living in emotional childhood, of course, we want to try and behave in ways that we think will manipulate people and situations around us to be okay enough for us to feel okay. But when we're in emotional adulthood, we don't have to spend any time and energy figuring out how to engineer interactions and situations to go exactly the way we want them to, because we know we'll be okay whatever the outcome is. We know we've got us, like we're good. So let's talk about this whole thoughts create our emotions thing. I used to think that anger was the only emotion available to me in so many scenarios. I was completely addicted to anger. I felt completely trapped. I didn't know how not to be so angry all of the time, and I didn't even know that there was another option available to me. All I knew really at that time was that I felt terrible, and I thought it was because of circumstances that I couldn't control. I had no concept of the fact that my thoughts were causing my emotions instead of the circumstances that I was observing and blaming for my emotions, instead of the circumstances that I was giving responsibility to for my emotions. In reality, my anger, of course, was caused by the way that I was thinking about the circumstances that I was blaming for my emotions. I hope you guys are all keeping up. This kind of gets convoluted. I was feeling these unwanted emotions way longer than was necessary or healthy because I was unaware of the thoughts that I was thinking that caused the emotions. You know, we want to feel anger. We want to feel the full range of human emotion, but we don't want to stay stuck there. We don't want to indulge those negative emotions. We don't want to just sit and wallow and mire in these very indulgent emotions that don't move us forward. Me staying in anger wasn't helping anyone, certainly not me. And it wasn't changing the circumstance outside of me that I was blaming for my anger either. Once I was introduced to the concept that my thoughts, not outside circumstances, created my emotions, I then began to examine the thoughts I was thinking about those circumstances that were creating those unwanted emotions. Instead of trying to control every tiny thing in my life and in the world so that I could feel some semblance of normalcy, or instead of trying to escape my emotions or distract away from them through, any number of methods that we use for emotional distraction, I just began to feel the emotions and I listened to what they had to say. So many times we just ignore emotions and resist against them and wish they weren't here and, just resent them. But your emotions always have something to teach you. I love to say that our emotions are our greatest teachers. And once I started to actually listen to the emotions instead of resist away from them and just be angry at them, that was when everything changed for me. From there, I was then able to question the thoughts that were creating those emotions and make conscious decisions about what thoughts I wanted to cultivate instead, if any. Sometimes you think thoughts that cause painful emotions and you choose to keep those thoughts. That's part of the game of Earth. We live here on Earth. Our experience is not entirely euphoric, if you haven't discovered that already. The full spectrum of human emotions is part of the gift of our human experience. Once I made peace with that too, that helped because I realized that nothing had gone wrong when I felt these difficult, challenging emotions. It just meant that I was a human being a human. And that really brought a lot of peace to me that I was holding myself back from when I was just resisting these emotions constantly. Taking full responsibility for our thoughts and the emotions that these thoughts create is not easy, but it is important. It can be extremely painful at times. It can be frustrating. It can be disorienting if we've gone our whole lives believing that other people and circumstances control those emotions. I get it. I was like, what is happening? But in this episode, I wanted to emphasize to you that despite the difficulty of this shift in perspective, it is more than worth it because in doing this, you take your entire life back. You take all the power back over your life that you tried to put in the hands of other people and circumstances. It was yours all along. You just tried to put it in someone else's hands. You take power back that was never truly situated outside of yourself. You just thought it was, but it wasn't. You accept responsibility for taking care of yourself in ways you didn't know you could. Oh my God, and this is so true. I didn't know that I could emotionally take care of myself. I didn't know that I could emotionally regulate myself. I didn't know that I could handle myself during times when I was experiencing such strong negative emotion. But in stepping into emotional adulthood, I realized that that capability was there all along. In doing this work, in stepping into emotional adulthood, you accept responsibility for the ways in which you act, think, and feel during situations where you are not in control of things around you, aka always. There is really very little on earth that we truly have control over. You accept responsibility for taking care of yourself emotionally, which means you allow yourself to feel whatever emotions you need to feel without shaming or judging yourself. All of this leads to a deeper, more connected relationship with yourself that enables you to live a more fulfilling life, both in and outside of relationships with other people. This is a huge part of being able to interact in a healthy, functional way with other human beings. And all of this is possible when you step into emotional adulthood. I mean, imagine the difference between a relationship where you're making the other person entirely responsible for your happiness, and therefore they feel just like handcuffed to your well-being. And then imagine a relationship in which you are good to go. You are emotionally taking care of yourself. You are solid. You have your own back. You don't expect them to act in an exact way that you need them to act in order for you to feel okay. You just allow them to show up as they are and you love them, and vice versa. That is the relationship you want to be in. That is good shit. So how do we actually go about walking out of emotional childhood and into emotional adulthood for good? Surprise, surprise, it's all about examining your thoughts. When you feel frustrated, angry, or resentful at someone or something, ask yourself why. You have to know the reasons why you're feeling things when you feel them. Do you feel angry at your job because you feel like you're going nowhere in life? That's not your job's problem. How can you take responsibility for yourself in this scenario? What thoughts are you thinking that tell you that your job has more power over your life than you do? Those are not thoughts you want to keep. Do you feel resentful at your ex for quote unquote giving you trust issues? That's not your ex's fault either. They don't have that kind of power over you. They never did. I know it felt, you thought that they did. They never did. They never had any sort of power over you that you can't choose to take back right now in this moment. So what thoughts are you thinking about your ex and about you in that scenario and about your future relationships now that are perpetuating this resentment and distrust? Those are probably not thoughts you want to keep. I mean, it's totally up to you. Sometimes you want to keep those thoughts for a while until you don't. But again, just examine what thoughts you're thinking and choose whether or not you would like to keep thinking them. Do you feel frustrated at your mom for complaining to you about the same things on the phone over and over and over again and forcing you to listen to her? Of course she wants to vent to you. Why wouldn't she? But that doesn't mean you need to listen if you don't want to. So take responsibility for how you're showing up here. Either decide to stay on the phone and be a good listener, or hang up because you want to, but don't blame her either way. Own your authority over your life and your decisions. I hope this episode was helpful. I hope that this gave you a good introduction to what emotional childhood is, what emotional adulthood is, how you can start to step into emotional adulthood, how you can start to really take mature ownership and responsibility over your own life, your own thoughts, feelings, actions, decisions. This really is life-changing work. If you'd like to talk about how you might be showing up in emotional childhood in your own life, and if you need some guidance on how to become more of an emotional adult, let me know. We can have a free session, free 30 minutes. I will walk you through it. No strings attached. I am so passionate about this. You can visit codependentmillennial.com/work with me to schedule that free 30-minute session. A lot can shift in 30 minutes, so I would highly recommend you taking me up on that offer. In the next episode, we are covering boundaries, what they are, what they aren't, how to set them, and how to maintain them over time. Again, one of my favorite topics of all time. I cannot wait to talk to you all about boundaries, something that, again, saved my MF life. Love boundaries. But a lot of people get them wrong, so I'm going to help you get them right. Until then, have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon. If you liked what you heard on this episode, join me on Instagram at Codependent Millennial for more tips on moving beyond codependency and building a life you are completely in love with. See you there.